Something's happening right now that has millions of people asking questions. Tick-borne illness is exploding. Alpha-gal syndrome is spreading across farms and communities. People suddenly becoming allergic to red meat after tick bites. Lyme disease is going systemic. And now hantavirus headlines are exploding online alongside viral clips from 2012, a 2012 Simpsons episode of all things, showing a cruise ship virus outbreak eerily similar to what people are seeing today. Coincidence, predictive programming, internet paranoia. Whatever people believe, one thing is clear: public distrust is reaching a breaking point. Jonathan Otto joins me now after battling Lyme disease himself and spending years investigating chronic illness, mitochondrial dysfunction, inflammation, parasites, and immune collapse. He believes these outbreaks may point to a much deeper systemic health crisis that's unfolding beneath the surface. Jonathan Otto, welcome back to the show.
That's a pleasure.
It's always great to have you here.
Thank you.
You always have some groundbreaking information for us and edifying our viewers with your experiences. Now, we've been tracking these headlines. Of course, the hantavirus is sort of in the rear view, it may seem. But of course, now we have the Ebola virus, which just happens to pop up on cue. We've got a Fauci-connected scientist who's been caught with, Ebola-style bio stuff in a test tube at an airport. FBI is investigating. The World Health Organization screaming again, and we're all going, okay, guys, we've seen this playbook. And then, of course, now this tick situation, and everyone's talking about how it's connected to Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation. And it's not far-fetched. I mean, we saw the connections with Gates and the programming, the wargaming before COVID. And, of course, we also know that Bill Gates has an interest in fake meat. So there's a lot of dots to connect here, and I want to ask you, because people all over the internet are talking about this explosion in the tick-borne illness. Let's begin there. The alpha-gal syndrome, and now the hantavirus headlines with this viral clip you can see here. So why is this suddenly becoming such a massive global conversation?
Yeah, well, Gary, I think that we saw what happened with COVID, and I think that people saw the writing on the wall for those that had kind of seen these things happen before, but others we were caught kind of with our pants down. And this time it feels a little different, right? Because, fooled me once, shame on you. Fooled me twice, shame on me, right?
Yeah.
We know the playbook, and Simpsons, predictive programming, I mean, it's pretty basic stuff, right? You just have people join secret societies, and then they're sworn to certain oaths over time that mean that they could do certain things, and then they tell you in the films, and so then that's allegedly to admonish their own conscience of the horrific things that are happening that they're a part of, so that they feel like they're somehow appeasing that part of themselves. But look, what's happening is a real concern, because when you think about all the health challenges that we've dealt with, and you think about mutual friends. And I'm thinking particularly about one that we'll meet again in heaven, which is Dr. Rashid Buttar. And you think you think about to him, the reason why he was RFK Jr.'s doctor, you're probably aware of that, yeah?
No, I did not know that. I mean, my interaction with him right as COVID was breaking out was a really remarkable moment, because we were able to discuss everything that was happening. And of course, everything that we said in our interview that went viral was proven right. We were called conspiracy theorists out the gate. I mean, even that interview I did with him that went global was deleted, off of multiple platforms. So, I mean, I did not know that he was connected with RFK Jr.
Yeah. Oh, I remember he was speaking at some of Dr. Rashid Buttar's events, and I knew that because he was very cutting edge. And you'll see that in the things that he discusses, and so kind of how wild some of the things appear, because it's cutting edge. And then when you look at what he was putting out to the public, he was sharing that all these things that happen, like when you get cancer, it's not like, oh, you got cancer, whoops, must have had some genetics, or, oh man, what did I do wrong? Must have sinned. God's probably hit me with a lightning bolt. All the kind of weird superstitious beliefs that people think, but they don't say. But the actual truth is, you got hit over most of your life with a smorgasbord of different toxins that were all designed and engineered to work together to create dysregulation. Dr. Buttar would say that constantly to me. It's dysregulation that's created this issue. And it's why also these HCG tests were, and he would explain this to me.
Well,
He's like, "Yeah,
I want to jump in real quick
yeah, please,
because,
I want to hear it."
when you think about what you just said, okay, I remember growing up. Now, my mother, she passed away from bladder cancer. Her mother passed away from cancer as well. And so, I mean, there's a genetic thread there, of course, but I can specifically remember that my mother was always drinking these diet drinks all the time,
Wow.
like all the time. Aspartame was huge,
Wow.
huge back then in like the 80s before we really knew what it did and what kind of damage it caused. And now, of course, you have all these different substitutes for sugar. But I just remember seeing just all these diet drinks, and then you'd look at the labels, and there'd just be like, like the information panel on the label of these drinks would just be like all the way down, and it's like, what is this? 0 calories, but it's loaded with all this stuff. So that's immediately what I think about when you think about people being just bombarded through their entire life with just ingredient after ingredient that's been engineered and run through labs and like, for what purpose, and then all of a sudden people just had an explosion of these cancers and different all the people having allergic reactions everywhere across the world, especially when you have these accelerated vaccine cycles for children. It's just it's out of control. Mm-hmm. So that's what I immediately begin to think about.
No, exactly. It's dysregulation, right? So all of those toxins then create this inability for cells to function normally. So then you stack the hantavirus with the alpha-gal tick-borne illness, with the Lone Star tick, with everything else that came before it, with Lyme disease, with HIV, which is actually a proven biological weapon. And you'd say, no, no, I think we know that. No, have a look at the homology sequence of HIV GP120. It's identical to a bungarotoxin, which is a cobra venom. So there's no way for this to occur naturally, and it does not match the official story. The outbreaks were happening in specific regions in the world, New York and southern Sudan and Uganda at the same time.
Oh, I remember talking to Dr. Horowitz many years ago about that, and what his investigations with respect to the early HIV outbreaks in the specific communities that were targeted at the time. Yep. I mean, like, it's, at this point it's common knowledge, but of course there's still going to be elements of the establishment. Oh, it's just a conspiracy. But when all the facts point in one direction, you have to draw a conclusion at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he pointed out, Dr. Leonard Horowitz, that Lytton Bionetics were within the top 5 biological weapons contractors for the United States, and they were doing the shots. They were doing these shots in that time, I believe it was 1978 or thereabouts. And then this is when the outbreaks were happening, and this is also when chronic fatigue syndrome became a diagnosed condition. We saw all these autoimmune reactions with people, and then then fast forward, RFK in his confirmation, I believe it was a confirmation. Look, this stuff back to front, so I love discussing this with you, Gary. But he got quizzed out on the Plum Island Lyme disease being a biological weapon, and it was the time for him, in his view, the best thing was to do step back off that and say, you know what, I didn't watch everything. He didn't want to get tainted, but like, obviously it was brought up because he actually did have feelings about it, which is why he talked about it on different shows. And this issue of what it's done to people is serious. And so then I do think that we could have some really serious allergic reactions and to and that we could have some similar reactions like COVID. Hantavirus has a kind of mirrors the symptoms of COVID, and it's allegedly from rodents. And so now you're thinking like bubonic plague, but COVID was allegedly from bats, which it wasn't, and more importantly, it had certain toxins, certain mechanisms that could be switched off, and that's why all these doctors got to work and then said ivermectin. And so that information right now is really powerful. If somebody says ivermectin now, then thank you, right? And so we have to look at things that are catch-all therapies that will be able to then tick the box and be able to give us solutions to these problems and protect our bodies so that we can live our lives not afraid. Because if you if you go inside now, you stay inside, then there's another risk there because you're not getting natural exercise, sunlight, and things that come with living a normal life. Yeah, so I'm excited about that.
I want to talk about the alpha-gal syndrome because
Yeah.
it's actually a really big topic right now. And so for people just hearing about alpha-gal syndrome, what exactly is it, and why are so many people terrified of it right now?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So alpha-gal syndrome is sounds like you think about this weird name like alpha-gal. Like I'm not a beta. I'm an alpha, and I'm a girl. I'm not a man, so I'm an alpha-gal. I have no idea why they come up with ridiculous names, and obviously there'll be some scientific reason. But you look at some of the names can have meanings. Like we see that with COVID, coronavirus, which is corona is crown. Okay, and so corona, and so the Pope's mitre is a crown, and virus. The Latin word is venom, poisonous secretion or venom. That's the actual Latin meaning. So it's like the venom of the crown. But it is kind of strange that you have world leaders meeting with the Pope. It is strange that Fauci attributes his success to the Jesuit order, who have been banished from over 100 countries for inciting wars and overthrowing economies, which is the militia of that arm of basically there's great Jesuits out there, right? There's good people within these organizations, but if you look at the Titanic 1912, Sir Francis Brown, long robe Jesuits, gets on board the ship, takes all the photos of the men, gets off the ship. So does was it J.P. Morgan? Yeah. Right? And then the three of the world's wealthiest men opposing the Federal Reserve Bank are on that ship. Ship sinks 1913.
And then the Federal Reserve is created that year.
Next year, 1913.
Yeah.
Following year, it's funding.
The IRS too, as well.
Yep. And then
all the same.
And then it's a war machine. Then it's a war machine. And then for World War I, 1914. And so you see that sequence of events. And so anyway, the names have meaning. So back to alpha-gal. I see that these farmers, right? And you're familiar with this, right? Where they're showing up with ticks on their doors, farmers reporting that boxes being released where the ticks have been released onto their livestock, into their farm, and then people showing up with these symptoms, which is as it's told to us, alpha-gal syndrome is where they're getting all kinds of allergic reactions to meat and dairy, and any allergic reaction is actually bad. Even if you're hardcore vegan, you say, well, that doesn't matter to me. No, you still don't want to be allergic to meat and dairy, because then if you ever get exposed, you could have anaphylaxis, you could have some kind of allergic response, your throat could seize, you could die on the spot. And then you need an EpiPen, and you need to actually know what to do in that moment. There are some things as well. If people have immediate allergic reactions, I actually met multiple people that because they knew that they could concentrate. Sorry about this, Gary. Antibodies in their urine. It was Dr. Rashid Buttar that told me about this. But you could switch off an allergic reaction immediately with your own urine. So it's just good to know.
Okay.
That's.
I've heard that. I've heard that before, and obviously I'm skeptical. I mean, I believe that I'm sure there's probably some people who've got some papers on that. I think you actually mentioned there are actual documentation.
Oh, urine is the single most studied substance in modern medicine, and it has tens of different medications that are all based on them. On urine. They're all urine-derived urokinase, urea, used for heart attacks or blood clots and cancer. Urokinase is a blockbuster drug. It's the enzyme in urine. Urea is also used in the same fashion. So
you bring that up because there's some actual some foot creams that have that in it.
Yeah, exactly. Because urea because it's practically the only clinically proven skin moisturizer, because it's your own blood filtered. It goes in the way it came out. It will absorb back into the body, and if you've got like lifelong acne, and I've seen cases of this where people put urine on their skin, it would reverse that. If people had athlete's foot, they put it on the athlete's foot and it would reverse it. But what I saw with the COVID vaccine injuries, and I've been on the show enough, Gary, and your wife's case study, and the fact that people should know that I have no self-interest in saying this, nor did RFK Jr.'s doctor, Dr. Rashi Buttar, when I, for 2 years, was trying to work out how to reverse the COVID vaccine injuries, and he calls me out of the blue after saying there is no way to reverse the vaccine injuries. And I was thinking, well, we're about to walk into oblivion, because I had, one girl, I won't mention her name, but she's literally the most famous vaccine injury case. I put in $40,000 of my own money to try and reverse the issue with a few of the world's best doctors. Met her at a Senate hearing in Washington, and then I financed that. Went out, flew out to the state and to work directly with the doctors. Nothing worked. So people have to understand that I was desperate and I actually cared about the issue, and it wasn't about me growing or doing anything or making money. It was only about solving the issue. I wanted humanity to have the answer, and I thought it was bizarre that he told me that it could be urine. I did all the research myself. I understood how when babies drink a liter a day in the womb of urine, which is, by the way, where all the stem cells are coming from, amniotic fluid. 90% of amniotic fluid is urine, 10% of it is fetal lung fluid. And you watch it on ultrasound, you see that it works in the same, you watch it, you see babies actually just urinate and drink, they're urinating every 1 to 3 hours. They're actually giving antibodies to whatever they're poisoned with continually. So they get on average of what has been proven 180 cancer-causing chemicals straight through the umbilical cord. How do they survive when they're forming? They're going from a tiny pea size to a massive, relatively massive, which we think is a little baby. Think about how small it was. It grew by magnitudes. How did it survive in an environment where all these cancer-causing chemicals growing straight to it that also proven to cause brain deformations and birth defects? And the answer is it always gave itself antibodies to those poisons through the urine. That's how the body actually works. It concentrates those antibodies. People have to know that if they have issues. I saw it in Africa. I saw it with a 14-year-old girl when I was there 2 years ago, and this girl was going to die from a deadly scorpion bite from what the locals had told me. I was there. I was leaving the hotel because I was going to do a famine distribution, and I stopped the vehicle, got out, told her what to do. She came out of it like nothing happened to her. I watched her go from like this with her eyes rolled back and in agony to bouncing up on her feet, trying to ask me whether we could get her some shoes, which would obviously be nice so she didn't get bit again.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow, we've really gone down a rabbit hole here. I always enjoy a deep dive into the rabbit hole.
Dive into urine.
Yeah, I wasn't kind of expecting that. I know you were recently talking about this with Russell Brand, so that's another conversation.
And I said to him, well, Bear Grylls, who baptized him, I said, don't blame me, Russell. Blame Bear Grylls, because he's the one that's educating celebrities to drink their urine on the show so they can survive. And just think about it the same way. Even though
Bear Grylls is encouraging people to do that now.
Yeah, because if you need to survive in the wilderness, you absolutely will survive with drinking your urine, no question. And then even the internet is trying to tell us the opposite, but you will die if you don't get hydration. And reports have shown that people are living at least 50 plus days, probably more like 100 based on some reports. Some are higher, but they're reports. I tested it for 6 days, and I was very hydrated. It didn't that is. You would die, some people would die within 6 days if they didn't have water. So anyway.
Okay. And it must have been an interesting 6 days. I hope we don't get this video terminated from YouTube.
No, they actually don't care about this, which is great. I don't know why. Because I got views into the tens of millions on this one, and we don't get flagged on this one, baby. This is, but I'm telling you something, man. Everyone's talking about what? Stem cells, exosomes, and peptides. Guess what's in your urine?
Oh,
100 million stem cells per day, based on Wake Forest University 2022 study, replicated 10 times. It did age for 3 weeks, so that's interesting. But
so we're aging our urine.
Well, they
like
did.
A fine wine. This is 2012.
Yeah, I know. And then 2012 exactly. But people that have done that, they put conducers for light bulbs, like to light a light bulb, and it'll generate electricity, which it does with fresh urine. And
What?
If something's a couple of years old, it should be dead. But in the case of urine, we've never seen it die after all the research. I mean, I've been doing this research for a long time. I've kind of been holding out on you guys. I actually apologize. This is really this is really important.
Yeah, you've been holding out for sure.
Yeah,
Jonathan.
bro. Well, like, I mean, it's kind of like cruel when you think about it. But sometimes we always kind of trying to work out like, you're like shooting in a warfare and like, can I put my head up now? And this is
Yeah.
like, can I put my head up now? I've established enough credibility with Gary and his audience to tell them that there's 100 million stem cells in urine, 100 billion exosomes per day.
Wow.
Roughly, it's either 10 to the power of 10 or 10 to the power of 13, which would be anywhere from tens of billions, even up to trillions, which are growth factors. And you have to understand that when people get exosomes or stem cells, where are they coming from? Fetal is illegal, and it should be. We care about life, right? That's not happening in this country generally. Like, that's black market stuff, right? What people are actually getting is fetal urine. It's amniotic fluid. It's fetal urine. So people need to know about this because it's out of reach for the majority of people, and it's saving lives. And I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I've seen these dramatic cases of these before and afters, and your audience cares about people that got affected with these COVID vaccines. I saw cases where people had heart palpitations for 2 years straight, every day after they got their second shot or whatever. And now they are sitting there like 2 years later, within that day, the heart palpitations stop. And then, in the case of this woman here.
Oh, you got a slide for me here?
Yeah. I was just gonna say if you could see it.
No, hang on, let me see. Brian, can you get that?
Yeah. And like these were examples as well. They'll come up soon, but
Brian, if you could get that. Share your screen.
yeah, no worries. It's called the glitch of the glitch world. Okay, so. And this is an example right here, right? It'll come up.
There we go.
Yep, yeah. So look at this, right? So this woman here.
She's always been my everything.
16 days of bleeding per month, induced period every month. Worse than childbearing. There's a daughter, so she can actually say she didn't. I wouldn't know. Okay. And, painless periods within 2 months, heart palpitations gone the first day. That she did it, and the body self-signaled and it removed the toxins, and then like other things happened, like her knees don't crack and pop, her hair was really soft, her skin was really soft, things that were actually better than what they were previously, even before the thankful government intervention at the time. And here was another case, right? This woman went from 140 pounds to 80 pounds. So notice she then is just posting this back in 2023, and she's saying, thank you, Jonathan Otto. And she's saying, thank you, Gloria, which is the woman in the other slide. They're educating people because, this was just that, right?
What's going on their bodies there?
This is shingles, and it was triggered by the tetanus vaccine, and then later the COVID, not just COVID itself, the virus, if you want to call it that, right? So the bioweapon. And so this is what happened with her as a result of that. And the one thing that some people will report to you is that the thing that she couldn't get out of her head was the desire to unalive herself continually, which she never had before. And it's happened to a lot of people, and very specific, almost like being given instructions. And that is demonic, obviously. Yeah. But it's tapping into different things. If your body is overrun with parasites, if you have the Toxoplasma gondii parasite, you are 7.13 times more likely to attempt to unalive yourself.
We got to be careful with that specific topic.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll
let you. That'll get flagged right away.
Even with using those code words, yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, yes. Okay. So then, full recovery, like happy, healthy, full recovery, right? This is another.
Oh my God.
This is one of my best friends, right? And so, could you imagine? I'm like. Known him for years, didn't know what to do, and so I was grateful to find this out. Look, whoops, this is that's me, right? And that is urine. That's my leg after, right?
Oh,
yeah. And I'm 40, right? I'm trying to stay in shape, and it's not easy to do that in a world filled with toxins. I actually think this stuff actually helps with that. Anyway, so there you go. That's enough on that.
Okay, I want to ask you about the Lyme disease that you personally battled.
Yeah.
What exactly happened to you? I mean, when you see all these ticks in these boxes being airdropped and all across the country and Canada. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, my thing was that, what happened to me was that I had this issue with, through childhood I had chronic fatigue syndrome, and when I had my blood checked, I had all these issues. I had Lyme disease, like so the spirochetes, the Bartonella Borrelia. I had the cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr virus, Ross River fever, glandular fever, and then boils breaking out in my body, and then nausea and things that just like I couldn't explain them. I didn't know what was going on in my body, and it sucked, right, as you could imagine. And so this is part of what actually helped me to become an expert in reversing my own health challenge. Barbara O'Neill, some people who know who that is, but she was my naturopath back like 20 years ago. And so I started to learn things really quickly, and I took my knowledge as an investigative journalist, and it went deep into the medical arena. And so what we started to work out when I was trying to work out how to reverse chronic health conditions, when my wife was on depression, anxiety medication, I was trying to work out how to get her off that, and then how to help us with fertility, and so we could have a happy, healthy baby. And so we were struggling in that area too. Then we had our 2 babies, and then even after that, 3 miscarriages. Now we've got a baby girl due in August. And
Congratulations.
So thank you, brother. So don't sit here saying, you know what, guys, nothing bad happens to me. I'm so cool. I've worked everything out. Look at my life, right?
Yeah.
I struggle too. Everyone struggles. And once people are real with that, and you don't know, right? We didn't know her progesterone levels were that low, and that she really needed to keep taking that, and she needed to take it out at the right time. And then, she's 40, she's coming up to 42. That's not old, but it can be, right? It's about fixing that issue. And so these things were life-changing for us, Gary, and it really came down to harnessing how the body generates voltage, right? So it was about toxins overburdening the body. And so once we went after that, in her case, we went after the parasites, we went after the heavy metals, we went after these synthetic poisons, which were really pesticide-based, which happen to really come from toxic parts of animals, what those animals secrete out of their fangs, all right? So that, I'm speaking in code, they are synthetic forms that are sprayed on all our food. So this now becomes something to remove. And then because they're so widespread, and you look at what happened with COVID, look at how this is in people's systems, people have to realize that what this is, it's like a game of chess or a game of cards, where it's not like there you go, I just like did one card move, now you're gone. And it is a card game or a chess game that ends with you being gotten rid of. That's how the game is played, and it's against you. But like, if we do something that everyone gets wiped out immediately, then that's not going to work out. So it has to be tiered, and it's based on stacking. It starts getting really weird and really evil, and it is. And so they are literally intentionally stacking things in, and so they stack.
So you've got to reverse stack it with your own solutions.
Yep. Yeah. And then we just reverse stack it, exactly what you're saying. And then it can be so complex that people are in this rat race. And so anyone that's suffering, that's watching this, they'll be like, yeah, I went to this doctor and that doctor and this doctor and that doctor. I ran this test, run that test. And so then unless we can fix and now get into the fact that, Gary, stem cells in the majority of cases are a scam, but not because stem cells themselves are a scam. If they were, you wouldn't be alive, but because of the lack of education on what they actually do, how your body actually generates them for free all the time. I talked about that and how they come out of the body, but I'm even talking about the ones in your body and how light will activate the dormant stem cells in your body to actually become active. Because you think about why somebody would put just more seeds in a farm without changing the fertilizer and the sunlight and the water that it needs to actually grow a successful, fruitful farm. So, to pardon the pun. And so these are the things that people need to do. Like you need to activate the cellular processes that will cause the regeneration of new healthy cells, while doing therapies that will actively remove the toxic layers of infection. And so yeah, and I think one of the big breakthroughs with that, Gary, is to look at how therapies like PEMF are this was an interesting one. PEMF's creating peptides, or in this case, it's increasing the natural production of specific peptides, regulatory proteins, and growth factors involved in healing tissue repair and inflammation. These are examples. So there are all these broken processes that need to get fixed. And if there's 2 processes that, and I'll prove it one by one, right? PEMF, let's go stem cells. Let's see what PEMF does for stem cells. So PEMF
And you're just all you're doing right now is just you're in simple Google, typing it in, and you're getting an AI overview right away.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's not linked to what my weirdo friend thinks because he just wants to be cool. It's linked to PubMed research. So
Wow.
PEMF stimulates and activates the body's stem cells to accelerate tissue repair and regeneration. It's widely used alongside regenerative medicine to mobilize stem cells to injury sites and reduce inflammation. Well, injury sites doesn't mean, oh, I got hit by a car. It means that, oh, yeah, I've got a damaged organ. My kidneys aren't functioning properly. They're low functioning. I've got some weird arrhythmia of the heart. These are all injury sites. Doesn't matter what it is, any malaise, chronic fatigue, okay, that's called an injury site, but it's kind of systemic, but certain organs going to have a concentration. So look, enhanced proliferation, PMF exposure can significantly increase the growth rate and multiplication of both endogenous, already in the body, and exogenous injected stem cells. So like go with the endogenous first, and then exogenous could be the ones you buy, or if you listen to what I said before, which is on the, this is, on the stem cell therapy, urine has that, right? But it's an example, right? But and then you look at all the research on this in each different category. Now have a look at red light and stem cells. Whoops, just red light. Okay, look at that. So red light therapy photobiomodulation uses specific wavelengths of red and near infrared light, 620 to 1000. To stimulate cellular activity. When applied, the light boosts mitochondrial energy production and reduces oxidative stress. In regenerative medicine, it is used to activate, multiply, and enhance the healing capacity of stem cells.
Wow.
I feel like I've been like really like robbing you as a friend, Gary. It's like I don't know. I've got to always kind of work out what I'm going to land on, but sometimes it's like it's interesting how information bounces around in your head, and like what's the most important part here? And I feel like stem cells is one of the most important parts to explain because you're just correcting a process. I was talking about dysregulation. Your body generates.
I remember when we had our first child, we were asked if we wanted to save the umbilical blood for the stem cells.
Yeah.
We were specifically asked about it. And I mean, at the time, it was our first child and we didn't really quite understand the significance of it. I wish I had done it now because I know that those umbilical stem cells for my son would be very valuable if there was ever anything that he would be encountering in the future. But what you're saying here, like, what's the difference between those stem cells and the stem cells you're talking about here?
Oh, well, endogenous stem cells, the stem cells already in your body. And so it's just there. And so, yeah, you could put new ones in, but just remember most of the time when people put new ones in, and even if you'd got that therapy, that, like, let's say if your wife had done it for diverticulitis, she may not have actually got better. In most cases, they don't because it didn't change the process. And so the key is, like, what you have, activate it, make more because it's actually from you. And so it kind of solves that so you don't feel so much like, oh no, my precious, I lost my one great opportunity at life and now it's gone. Right? It's interesting that there's something wrong when that happens because we don't serve or worship a God of scarcity. There's a God of abundance, which is fascinating that when babies then were born in some societies, it then became illegal to collect your own infant's urine for the same reason that you just discussed. Because most people don't even get the question and that goes somewhere else and that's getting sold. And there's a transaction there. In this case, it was transacted, it was brought to the royalty. Public servants of the royalty were then taking it and collecting even the Pampers, the diapers, the cloth diapers and wringing that out and they were using that for bathing because it's between the baby being in the womb and the baby leaving the mother's belly, the process of creating urine was the same. Roughly speaking, or almost entirely based on the small aspect of fetal lung fluid, but it's generally the same thing. So anyway, without going down that rabbit hole too long, but it does create the real answer to that some people, there's other information there. There's a reason why you'll see that in Asian cultures. You'll see the Chinese, I don't want to like put out any nationality, but they have passed down this ancient knowledge Japanese have, but so has Egyptians, Greek, Roman, and especially on the Indian and Ayurvedic side of medicine, they passed this down. So people knew about these practices of urine therapy, and they knew about it for infants as well. And they would use it with the infants. They would take the infants' urine because they would also have some of those, exactly what you're saying about having the youngest original information that was biologically even connected to you, and then you would take that and like Matt Hazen from Masterpiece, he was just telling my other friend SGT report Sean that his mother's life was saved by an exosome enema, which then makes me think that, and exosomes are the tiny secretions that come from the stem cells. So when you get stem cells injected, the stem cells die, and then they produce all these exosomes into the billions, and that's what is actually responsible for all the growth factors. So what you know about stem cells is really the exosomes are really the activator, and the fact that you have hundreds of billions in fresh urine, roughly speaking, on a daily basis, then if somebody wanted the really young ones, they could basically say, anyone, one awkward conversation. Oh, okay. Do you mind donating some of your urine? But it was the NFL player that he would do that, right? It was Chad. You can look up his last name, but he didn't miss a game because he was soaking his ankles in urine when he'd get an injury. It just regenerates. Anyway, sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a doozy, bro.
Well, I appreciate everybody watching. This is probably the last video you'll ever see on the Next News Network.
Last time Jonathan's getting invited back, he's out.
Well, Jonathan, there's not going to be a channel left to come back to after this interview. I don't know how this is gonna roll out in the algorithm. I hope you guys subscribe to our backup channel. No, but seriously, maybe I could try to pull this back over to the tick situation here. Because people online, they're connecting the tick epidemic to theories involving the vector research, Plum Island, RFK Jr.'s past comments about Lyme disease origins, and of course now even these eerie Simpsons comparisons tied to the hantavirus headlines. So why do you think public distrust is reaching this level?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because we get lied to on a daily basis, baby. And,
yeah, we do.
I don't know who was channeling the song with Viva La Vida with Coldplay. Hear Jerusalem bells ringing, Roman cavalry choirs singing, be my mirror, my song, my shield, be my missionary in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain, I know St. Peter won't call my name. Never an honest word, that was when I ruled the world. Who ruled the world? And there was never an honest word, and St. Peter's not going to call his name because he's done something really wrong. It sounds a little like sympathy for the devil. Pleased to meet you, I'm a man of wealth and taste. I've been around for a long year, stole many a man's soul and faith. I was there when Jesus Christ had his moment of doubt and pain, made damn sure that Pilate washed his hands, sealed his fate. Pleased to meet you, I hope you guessed my name.
Wow.
You know, we were there when we shouted, who killed the Kennedys? After all, it was me and you. The bodies stank, and I held the general's rank. And when heads is tails and sinners saints, just call me Lucifer because I'm in need of some restraint. So it literally says that. That's the lyrics of the song, word for word.
Yeah.
So yes, Satan is doing things in this world, and so just know that lies is the fabric of the world that you live in. People do tell the truth. There are great people out there. Don't distrust everything.
Okay.
Because,
All right. So here's what I'm going to ask you. This is totally out of left field because this is not anything we're talking. I have in my list of questions for you.
Sounds like a good one then.
We got the UFO disclosures.
Yeah.
They're all over right now. Second drop just hit, and there was right before the first drop, a bunch of pastors apparently were briefed about the religious implications. I recently just did another report where another pastor just straight up said that that these are interdimensional demonic beings, and God is only allowing that Satan to reveal himself in this form for whatever purpose in the greater end game of Revelation. But Satan's ultimate role in this is and the disclosure aspect of this is to draw doubt upon the scriptures.
Yeah.
So that we think that we are not the unique creatures in creation made in the image of God. So therefore, when you have an alien that says, I'm here from another world, all of a sudden your God is not, you're not as special as you think that you are. And that's what a lot of people are drawing a conclusion, at least from the religious side.
Wow.
What's your take? Because you talk about the lies,
Yeah.
and the disclosures are happening. I can only imagine what you think about
Yeah,
this.
no, this is great. Look, you're onto something, and I just am really appreciative of the people you put around you to give you more knowledge and information on things that normally you see something and you're using your eyes. And why are you just using your eyes? You use your eyes, but you walk by faith and not by sight. You use the things that are proven to you. The reason why people trust the Bible, as an example, is because there were literally several hundred prophecies that Jesus filled to the very letter. The fact that he was taken on Passover, there's one day of the year at the time that the Passover lamb was sacrificed at the 9th hour, which you count from 6, which means it was 3 p.m., between 3 and 5 p.m. He cried out with a loud voice at the ninth hour saying, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. He quotes the scripture, my God, why have you forsaken me? Psalm 22 that says, they pierced my hands and my feet. In that psalm, all dated in the Dead Sea Scrolls to be written at the time that it was assumed to, which in this case was 1,000 years BC, all indicating Christ. So these give you strength in the scriptures. Once you have that, then you do understand that demons are going to masquerade as dead loved ones and show up and say, Gary, you know what? You know, I'm your mother coming back to you, and I want to tell you that God, like, he's changed things that, you know, you don't have to devote yourself to him in the way that you thought. You know, he just wants you to have fun. Just get out there a little bit more and just do things that, break your conscience, break the law of God, in very insidious ways. And then demonic entities are in the exact same way. And exactly what you said, like you look at Avengers when Pete the Guardians of the Galaxy guy, Peter Krill or whatever his name is, and he says, who am I? Oh yeah, they say, who is your master, right? And then Peter says, what am I supposed to say? Jesus Christ. And then Tony Stark's character says, oh, you're from Earth, as if that it's only the Earth dwellers that would know about Jesus, because we've got all indoctrinated with this story about Jesus. We got like that religion forced down our throat, which we did. And we got lied to there, but it doesn't mean that Jesus is not true. Yes, they want to like lie.
Well, there's a big distinction between religion and faith, and I want to make that very clear.
Yeah,
and that's why you can say what you just said, because religiosity is a structured, organized, thing. But when you have faith in Christ, that's completely different. That's a relationship with our Creator and His Son. Yep. That's the difference.
Yeah.
And nobody goes to the Father but by Christ. So therefore, we can have a direct line to the Creator. And and I'm not. This is not to disparage any church or any religion, any Christian-based religion, because each one has its role, each one has its place. Everybody has their own method to worship. Worship our Creator. Some people do it when they stand up and they sit down, they stand up and they sit down, and they stand up and they sit down, and they stand up and then they repeat and they repeat and they repeat. Other people do it with their arms raised and they're singing and praising God. I think everybody has a different methodology for the way that they practice their religion. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to the one-on-one conversation you have with Christ in the darkness alone.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And you know what? It doesn't matter what you say. Of course, it does when you're a family and you're around the table and you're giving thanks, and you're breaking bread and you're giving thanks to God for the abundance in front of you, or praying for the healing and the miracles and the things and the gifts that the Lord can provide. But it really does come down to those private, individual moments where you can commune with God. And even when you're communing with God, He knows your thoughts, even when you're doubting yourself, And I have those moments, even when I'm praying and I'm going, like, God, show me, what am I supposed to do here? Thank you. And just trying to have that communal moment, and my mind's doing its own thing while I'm still speaking. It's wild, but God knows where your heart is. He knows where your direction is. Anyway,
Yeah,
you
it's
kind of
beautiful.
got me on a tangent here because
Bro, it's
you brought up the
beautiful.
religious element
No,
here.
thank you for sharing faith, man. That's so beautiful. This is the key, right? How do you survive these times? Is this kind of faith. It's kind of faith that then leans deeper and is honest and transparent and says, you know what, it's difficult sometimes, and we have down days, we have temptations, and we need Christ. We need not just a form of godliness, but denying the power, where it's just Christian in name only, and it's for the because it has moral power. Like, so we could use that as a steamroller, or you could be like Jesus and actually just learn to be like Jesus and ask God for that help for whatever you're dealing with, and the faith and the help you need to get through a health challenge, and not give up and curse God and die, as Job's wife said, which, you know, she was just struggling. That's like, it's a natural response to what happened to him. But then he says, though he slay me, yet will I trust him, even though God wasn't actively hurting
Job's story
him.
is amazing. I mean, his
Yeah.
faith and what he went through is, I mean, it's such a test. And, you know, to be able to have the faith of Job, you know, not many people can have that. And,
No.
you know, I can only hope and pray that I will always stand firm, even in the most darkest hours. And even in my darkest hours, you know, when I surrender, that's when God moves. You know, it's only when I surrender that God moves. I get out of the frickin' way, and God does His work, and I let Him. A lot of times I'm the roadblock, and but you know, I know we're totally on a different tangent here, but I wanted to ask you, since we're talking about, you know, God, we've talked about Mel Gibson before.
Resurrection.
You know, you got the new movie coming out.
That's
Mel
awesome.
Gibson, they just wrapped filming on it,
Awesome.
and he says it's like an acid trip. And that's, you know, one of the things I've always been really, one of the things I've always loved is what you don't learn in church, what you don't learn in Sunday school, and how, you know, the war in heaven. How come we never really, no one really ever talks about that? You don't. That's not like the big, you know, Sunday, you know, you hear Noah's Ark and animals 2 by 2 and all that, right? You know, and light a candle under a bushel and all that stuff, right? But the war in heaven, he's going to depict that and depict what happened when Christ was gone for 3 days, right? No one ever talks about that. He's gone. He dies. Where did he go for 3 days, right? He went to hell to defeat the enemy. And the scriptural statement in the Bible is it's like, it's not, at least from what I've read, it's very short. But so much can be taken from that short moment, that short scripture, that Mel Gibson's about to show it. And I really believe that he is inspired by God to present what really happened. I mean, of course, we have to watch it with discernment, but I think what he's about to reveal, and I guess it's a 2-part sequel that he's releasing, that Jesus goes to hell and crushes the devil, releases the captives from Sheol, and, you know, returns at the resurrection, and it's going to depict the war in heaven and all these things that took place when Lucifer was cast out.
Wow.
You know, and then the fallen angels and, you know, the Nephilim and all these things. I'm really curious to see just how far he goes.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm on a tangent.
No,
but
no, no.
I just learned about that today. That he just wrapped filming on it.
Well, fantastic. And my little 2 cents on that is, one, you know, I love Mel, love his heart, love what he's trying to do. Excited for any conversation around God and people doing their best and people putting out what they think the scripture says, and I think that's a powerful thing. And I think that in a certain sense, the battle against Satan and Christ defeating Satan is one that I 100% like, I'm all out for. The difference where I would, which is cool, Christians should have like things where they discuss and go like, here's how I see it, or maybe I see it differently, maybe it's something we could learn and grow from each other. My research, and even it's interesting, AI can now help people with this, where if you ask, you know, any of the systems, particularly the one I've been using more is Grok, but on eternal conscious torment, they'll tell how this is actually more of a later belief, something that's come in really over the last 1,500 years, from about 500 AD onwards, and especially got popularized with Dante's Inferno. I believe that was around the 12th century. My point in saying that is that death exists, and Hades, Sheol, these are the words that translate from Greek and Hebrew straight directly into grave, which is why David in Psalm 139 says, behold, Lord, if I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there, and so I am not afraid. And that doesn't make sense to us in eternal conscious torment, but it does in the sense of the grave. Like if he goes to rest in the grave to wait for Jesus to return, God is with him, so he's not afraid. So it's just that which I get. I know that how much deliverance, the more I saw God as loving toward me and that I didn't sense threat from God, that was when I personally got victory over pornography. And that is mind-blowing to realize that I didn't find comfort. And even though you'd be like, yeah, well, Jonathan, you hardly, you know, whatever. And it's like, no, well, I knew what was in my heart. And I knew that if enough factors went wrong in my life at the same time, that, you know, that periodic time of that few times a year or whatever it was, I would then sink into a spell, not maybe a spell, but just like need and desire comfort. Whereas when I found a comfort from God that came from feeling that there was no threat and no violence in the heart of God toward me or anyone else, you have no idea the amount of joy that I felt and how much deconstruction I had and just, I felt like I was a deprogrammed war soldier or something crazy. Wow. And I felt so much love and joy from God that I was like, I don't need this. I don't want this. And I had other men that were trying to overcome these addictions for years, like decades, finally have victory. And they weren't even trying. It was because they found a love and comfort in God that they never had. So anyway, that's a fun little fact from me.
Wow. Well, we've covered quite a lot of ground so far. And yeah. I know we started talking about, you know, the Simpsons episode. We started talking about the tick, these outbreaks that are occurring, these epidemics, the distrust in the system, and these solutions that you've shared with me and my family. I don't know how much. I mean, what more can we go? I mean, because what is going back to the Lyme thing, and I'm sure everyone's like, no, guys, keep talking about Mel Gibson and the scripture. But you know, that's for another podcast. Mm-hmm. But I want to ask you the biological. What do you believe is the biological mechanism underneath chronic Lyme, alpha-gal, post-viral illness, and all these autoimmune conditions?
Yeah, nice. Okay, great one. So this is. It's some kind of poisonous secretion. So a tick happens to belong to the spider family. 8 legs, baby. Okay? So that is, and then when it's biting you, it's secreting a bacteria. In the case of Lyme disease, this is showing, and you can have a look at what I'm pulling up here.
Sure.
If it's still available. Because this also shows the mechanism how to reverse these issues. So these poisons, how'd I go there, Brian? Did I?
I see it.
Yeah. Oh, nice. So thank you, Brian. So what we have observed, and I'd watch it under live blood analysis, these little tiny spiraling things in my blood, and then the doctors would explain it to me and say these are like basically like little screwdrivers or drills that are just like turned on and they're just burrowing through your cells, like basically like crushing holes and going through and people, like, they weren't normal, and they went, what are these little floating things? Like, they're clearly alive. They look like little, like when you see mosquitoes, or we call them wrigglers in Australia, when they're like basically like little, before they're formed in mosquitoes and they're in the water, they call them. Anyway, they look like that. But there's this bacteria that they're designed to destroy mitochondrial function, probably. Really, when you think about it, a lot of this stuff is actually deeply satanic, in that nature it's like it's being steered under a satanic agency. And then you see things that like shouldn't be in people.
Well, I mean, okay, you bring it up again, because we go back to the moment of creation, and the moment when knowledge was entered into Adam and Eve after they disobeyed God because they had free will. And Eve bit the apple, brought it to Adam. Adam takes the apple, and they were cast out, and death and sin were introduced into the world. And the only way death and sin could be introduced in the world was because they had, I guess, the knowledge now of good and evil. And death, the wages of sin is death. So, in my understanding of it, the only way all these things were introduced in that moment that would then allow for death to take hold of creation because of the original sin moment. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. That's just sort of my philosophy.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. It's interesting if you look at the statement in Romans, the wages of sin is death. So who pays the wages, right? So the wages, meaning the earnings, what you earn for sin is death. So it's sin is paying the wages, and the wage, the actual, like, here's what you get for your hard work, death. So it's an impounding system that is operating outside of God's will, and that's why.
That's why Christ had to stand in the place of that death, and his death was the death that canceled out everything else, and that's of course why for thousands of years prior, the Israelites would sacrifice an animal every year, and they would sacrifice them personally, and suddenly that sacrifice was taken away because Christ was the ultimate sacrifice. Mm-hmm. So it's just remarkable, when you think about the grand timeline of these things, and we're going back to the religious part of it because it really does all come back to it.
Yeah,
because that is.
Yeah, no, sorry. Brian, if you don't mind just taking that off screen for a second, but that system of death, Gary, Satan is the author of it. Once people work that out and that system is then steered under satanic agency, then it makes sense why a parasite will get in your body and make you think things that you never ever dreamt of, and dispose you to different things that we discussed earlier. Or it makes sense that different things are using you as a prey instead of everything functioning together. And like, God is not the author of death, and it clearly says this, that he's the author of life, and then it refers specifically to the destroyer. If you look at Revelation 9:11, you think that's a coincidence? The verse 9:11, the angel from the bottomless pit, in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, in the Greek tongue is Apollyon. Both translate directly destroyer in the Greek and in Hebrew. So Satan is the destroyer. And it's either slowly through nature, and you see all these mechanisms that are all built around destruction and death.
Yeah.
And then you see it, and you see it in the inciting to war and to hatred and to prejudice and things that then ultimately lead to death. And then God enters into the timeline, and then through miracles and acts of love and kindness, even when it was never deserved, and then he continues to pour out his love, and then he submits and comes into a darkened system, and then faces the death penalty that was pushed upon him. And then, because if you look at verses like Psalm 40 verse 6, sacrifice and offering for sin you have not desired, my ears have you opened, burnt offering and sin offering you have not required. God did not need a blood. These verses, there's so many of them. Hosea 6, I delight in mercy and not sacrifice, but the sacrifice becomes essential, because the way to solve a problem is that death is the only outcome. It needs to be atoned with blood, and this is the law of man. And it's interesting. You look at the cross, you see Christ is crucified, resembling John 3:14, as Moses lifted up a serpent in the wilderness, so shall also the Son of Man be lifted up. Why is Christ referred to as a brass serpent on a pole? Serpent, symbol of the first sin. And what you look at when you see Christ on the cross with 39 lashes twice, 78 lashes, all the flesh practically ripped off his torso, that is satanic justice. This is how the world operates. But then he still then says, I love you, and I'm not going to let you go, and I'm not going to condemn you. No matter what you do to me, you're still enough for me. And then that breaks the hold that Satan has over our minds, that we cannot be forgiven. And once we believe that we can be forgiven through his death, we have been given life. That is why the death of Christ brings us life, because of what it makes us believe about his forgiveness for us. Yeah. That's what I think.
When I saw The Passion of the Christ for the first time, like, I've seen a lot of different films that depict that moment, but that film was so real I tried watching it with my children, and it was like, it became. I mean, they were probably too young to witness something as horrific as what was depicted in that, but I remember watching it and getting to that point where he's carrying his cross, and they put the crown of thorns on him, and the torment, and watching that the actor Jim Caviezel, embody that pain and anguish was so real, and it's such a powerful film that I'm looking forward to that victorious day of his return, and when he's arriving on that white horse with his thousands of angels, and I think about this next film that Mel Gibson's about to create, and I think about the depiction of the victory, because we saw the sacrifice, we saw the resurrection, but now we get to see the overcoming of everything. And I'm just looking. I'm sorry. I'm getting all choked up about it because it really hits me.
Wow. Oh, it's so beautiful. Oh, death, where is your sting? Grave, where is your victory? And everything that you love, like, people have to realize that even those that don't necessarily fully connect with the theme, what you have to consider is that, what if the gates have been opened for you, for your loved ones that you just so long to see again, and parts of your life maybe you never got to experience, all being given back to you, and it's because of this beautiful act of love that was in the life and death and resurrection of Jesus. And that is why that means so much to others, and maybe it could mean so much to you, right? If that's kind of like a foreign concept, imagine being given those gifts, and imagine there's a way that it can make sense, and everything that maybe repulsed you about Christianity wasn't Christianity like Gary talked about. It was the things that came from people wanting to weaponize that system,
Right.
because it was a tool. It was a way to gain massive supremacy in people's minds, because nothing is greater, nothing has been more powerful, nothing more famous than the life and the acts of Jesus. And so these symbols then become symbols of war, because they are powerful tools, even though the actual teaching is love, and to turn the other cheek, and to give everything you possibly have until your dying breath. That's what the example that he gave.
Have you
So
seen
whatever turns you off is not actually him.
Have you seen the movie The Book of Eli?
No, I've seen the trailer a couple times, so I'm quite familiar with the
You
theme.
know, it's such an amazing film. I watched it with my kids, and Denzel is just an amazing character in that film. And he has like the last Bible on earth.
Yeah.
And he has to bring it to a certain place so that it can be replicated and it can be, given back to man, right? And the antagonist in the film is chasing after this Bible himself, because he wants to use it to weaponize the scripture against the people. And it's interesting that you bring it up, because the weaponization, and how we've seen scripture and we've seen the Bible weaponized over thousands of years, and how established religious orders have used it for their own benefit. And I can only imagine what happens when they get to their judgment day, and the Lord says, "What have you done with my book? What did you use it for?" But you should watch that movie. It's really it's really cool. My kids really loved it. It's got some pretty intense scenes, but it's a really good movie.
No, I appreciate that. I and that particular theme that you're bringing up, I think, is a really powerful one. And I think that, and you look at someone like Desmond Doss, and to me, right, my wife, I think, did I mention that my wife got to meet him before he died, and Hacksaw Ridge, like Mel Gibson's other film, right? Funny enough, we're talking about him, but he 75 men in one night that he rescued, and every time he brought one man to the ledge, he said, "Lord, just one more." And the area wasn't actually called a Hacksaw Ridge. It's just they called it that because people's bodies were getting sawn in half by machine gun bullets before they'd hit the floor. And so how did this man survive? And so to me, like the true representatives of like God and Christianity don't fight with arms. What I know about that particular storyline, like it's got some powerful themes, and so I get it. Like it's got some cool things, but that to me is the true example of like when the message of God has to continue, it goes in the method of God as well, which is in this case through modeling the life of Christ, so that he's completely nonviolent in his pursuit to bring life to the soldiers and doesn't harm the fellow Japanese soldiers. He just sees it all as one big human family. He's probably the only soldier that everyone knows the name of, and it's ironic that he never carried a gun. And so it's just like that's to me the power of God and Jesus and in protecting somebody as well. Like, because if I have the last Bible on earth, God, I got to fight now in order to protect this. But in what he said, well, God's going to have to fight for me. And in this case, there was too many bullets. Like he was the last man left on the escarpment. 75 men in one night, and he's the last man left there. Like, what does that sound like? It sounds like Jesus just saying, I'm not getting off this mountain until every person is off. And he was the last person there. Everyone else was off. And it was because of him, right? And that's the love of God.
Amen.
Yeah.
I'm you talk about going back to the root causes of we talked about the root causes of the spiritual aspect of death and sin and destruction. It goes really down to the cellular level, the mitochondria dysfunction, inflammation, the parasites, terrain collapse. Explain what you mean by all that.
Oh yeah. So if you can, collapse the mitochondria and you can mess it up, then you can't expect anything to work anymore. So you literally, if the whole system was broken, then you wouldn't live and you wouldn't be able to breathe. And the reason why people were having respiratory arrest from something like COVID is because it was technically through the mechanism of binding to nicotine receptors, but ultimately over time, then that damage became mitochondrial damage. And mitochondria are the energy powerhouses of the cells, and they're organelles that wrap around, they surround the nucleus of the cell and of the organ cells. And so once these get destroyed enough, then now you're just running on fumes and you can't regenerate. And so once your body stops regenerating and converting properly, then you are the case that then doesn't suddenly get a diagnosis of cancer. It was a process that started in the body that resulted in what you call cancer or another chronic disease or dementia and all these different things. So what people need to do is get away from the diagnosis. And even like Russell Brand, I need to respond to him today for his son. He was asking for help, and he did it live, so I wouldn't mention it if he didn't mention it live. And I don't say that because I want to to publicize that, other than it's just real. And so his young son needs help for this chronic condition that he's had since his first days, to my knowledge. And they're toxic layers that have come because of the world that we live in. And I know what it's like because my children have had a lot of issues, and yet and we didn't do all the things that you would think you do. You'd say, okay, Jonathan, you know a lot before they were born. And yes, they have an amazing health, but they have certain things that, like these 15-minute long seizures, different things that you would think, okay, how does that happen? They don't have them anymore, so we had to solve problems, right? And we restored the mitochondrial function. We got them on light therapy. And what we're showing is, like, when I show this documentation, right? So check out this on Lyme disease and red light therapy. This is an amazing one. Right. So what you're seeing here, Gary, is red light therapy utilized by Lyme disease patients. By the way, people being gaslit so much on Lyme as if it never existed as well, to help manage lingering symptoms like joint inflammation, chronic pain, and fatigue. So it's managing the symptoms. And then it's saying it's not the CURE word, but it can support healing and cellular repair. So, but together, the therapies then end up working to get to the root of the bacterial infection. Because remember, if you want to go after those things, that's where the methylene blue red light therapy combination stack, because that's called, drum roll, antimicrobial photodynamic therapy. So once you are then absorb, like you absorb the blue dye into your cells, and you could do this with chlorophyll or berberine, or look up the other natural photosensitizers, take them 2 hours before light, then put the light in front, typically like 20, 30, 50 minutes, 30 minutes, even 50 or or 60 minutes. Okay, now you got it over the key organs and ideally over all your organs. And then while you're doing that, what's happening is your body's now creating these bursts of light in the body, and light is begetting light, and then you're creating reactive oxygen, including singlet oxygen, which is fluorescent. So you're creating all this light. Because you're creating a 5 times increase of that, it is going after parasites. It's the increased energy is helping to purge heavy metals from the body, or proven. It's proven to then remove formaldehyde, these toxic chemicals. So red light therapy proven to remove these. But the ones I'm talking about here specifically is it's then going after all the bacterial infections. There is a mechanism by which it's purging the body of these poisons, and that's why people are getting incredible results. And then it does the other things we've been talking about, generating stem cells, exosomes, peptides. That whole process is all happening as well.
That's amazing. So amazing. Jonathan, and we're blessed to know you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
I'm just blessed to have you, on this channel. And, I know that you have gifted us with devices, and we're using them in our household. You've gifted us multiple devices. We've actually been able to gift to loved ones who are seeing remarkable results. And we're just blessed to have this relationship and be able to bring you on this channel and have these conversations. I just want to ask you, what is the next step for individuals who might have more questions about these?
Absolutely. So, Gary, thank you. Well, really simple. Get red light therapy if you want to, if you believe in it, you think that it could be a really great tool for you. Then you can come over here. You could actually maximize my screen if you don't mind, and you could get a panel, right? The other one, thank you. This is an example of one I sent my grandma home with after splitting her head, after continuing to take all those shots that we keep warning people not to take. She had a lot of cognitive decline. She ended up splitting her head, 16 stitches. So she ended up on this 9 different wavelengths. You can see them there. I took out the blue here. I can add it in, but she ended up regenerating her thyroid, which is random, because she's been on medication for decades. How did she within I think 3 months get off a thyroid medication or no longer need to take it? And then what else happened? She lost all the pain in her body. She went from not being able to walk without having support to being able to move freely, and then because of that, moved back into the home that my wife and I helped to build for her. So what it would have cost her, just for the record as well, if she had bought this with the discount we're giving to your audience, Gary, is under $1,200. That is what she would have spent that single year for a thyroid medication.
Wow.
So, and then what does that mean? What did that actually cost her? Over the next 10 years, she now saved $11,000. And yes, do I think I can get my grandma? Well, I already did. I helped get my, and it's not me, it's God, right? It's the body, it's their own actions. But to 98, my grandma on my side. So I do expect her to live another 10 years plus. And I want her to have the best quality of life, and it's the best gift I can give to my wife. So, just think, men and women out there, the greatest gifts that we can give to each other, to our loved ones, to ourselves, is the gift of health. It's the gift that keeps giving. It's the one that if you're thinking about somebody, if you've started to take care of your own needs, put the oxygen mask on first, get one in your own home, but then start thinking about your family. And I'm not just saying this because I like trying to get products to people because I want to grow a company. I like trying to help people. I talked about things that maybe some people would discredit me off what I said, even though the scientific literature on every single item I said, and you can validate everything I'm saying. But I shared it because I want people to have that knowledge and those facts. And when you look for a high quality device, look for irradiance, the amount of power coming out of the device. And so I'll show this on this meter, right? Check this out, Gary. You'll love this. You haven't shown you this before, right? So this is, I've got maybe $5,000 worth of testing equipment here. So I'm going to push this on here. I'm going to measure the wavelengths coming out of the device in that section. Now, when you look at the proven wavelengths, I showed you the stem cell, which wavelengths are proven to generate stem cells, and it was all these wavelengths, 630, wow, 660, 830, 850. They may not be there. Just because you see the color, it doesn't mean that it's actually there. And then if it is there, it doesn't mean that it is strong enough. So then,
what was that device that you just put up there?
That's a wavelength meter. It's testing the wavelengths, which means which you could visibly see in their colors. So you'll see that there's blue there, right? So you can see 480, right?
And that's what I use when I do every the full spectrum when I use mine.
Yeah, there you go. And like this is continually getting reading. Now, if I'm moving it to different sections, because there's 9 different wavelengths, there is a concentration of different lights in different areas. And then I could say, oh, they're dual lights. There's near infrared coming out of all the lights. But what if I'm lying? You don't know. But now live time, you see anything that's 800 and up is all near infrared wavelengths. And so it has all of those. And you see you see, depending on where I am on the device, you'll see these spikes go up in terms of the irradiance or the amount of light that's concentrated in those regions. There's a big, that one was 830 there, like heavily proven for stem cell regeneration, near infrared light. It's going to penetrate in through the bones, into the center of the organs.
So that device there has a light sensor on it, and it's picking up the actual wavelength of the light?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, I've never seen anything like that.
That's cool, right? And then this one here is going to test the irradiance. So that then becomes the most important thing still, because it's the amount of power that's coming out. And so now how much power is going out? If this was 10 times less, you could expect potentially 10 times less the effect. And you notice that this is sitting well above 200, and it jumps like depending on where the light's hitting, and because it's responding moment by moment. But that is over 200 milliwatts per centimeter squared at 3 inches. So you're getting that's clinically proven to do all the things that we've been talking about over the time that we've been discussing. What I was showing in the clinical studies, it's based on 2 things: the wavelength and the irradiance, how much power is coming out of that. And the reason why it's working so effectively and showing that it's doing all these different things in short periods of time is because the irradiance is somewhere between 20 to 40 times the power of the sun. And then that is what makes the studies that I'll just show you here make sense, Gary. So this is the studies on antimicrobial photodynamic therapy, which was showing what we've been talking about: hantavirus, ticks, tick-borne illness, Lone Star ticks, with the potentially an offshoot of the Bartonella or the Lyme disease, right? And so here you've got on PubMed, which you wouldn't believe this if you didn't see it, right? Why is it showing here that? Oh, yeah. Okay, it's decided that it wanted to not share it. Like maybe somebody doesn't want this information to get out. No, there we go. Like anytime the technology happens with our crews, like we could just say, oh, it's the bad guys. Yeah. I had one friend that would do that a lot. I'm like, bro, you just didn't beef up your tech team. Let's just be honest here. Yeah, you just need to get, work a little harder, homie. Okay, so look at this, right? Change in tumor size. For this one was for malignant melanoma, 99% reduction. 3,000% growth in control. Let's look at this one, breast cancer, 100% complete ablation. And if you don't believe your eyes there, let Grok tell you the same thing, but just do it verbatim. 99%, there you go. 100% tumor reduction. These are intratumoral methylene blue injections in mice where they put the methylene blue directly into the tumor and then they put the light over it. Why are they getting such blockbuster results? It's killing all the issues of, like, let's say the microbes, the parasites, the bacteria. These people may all have, or in this case, the animals, what is causing that tumor may have a connection to Lyme disease or these different things. And then you'd say, okay, these are animals, shows humans. Okay, here's humans, right? So, 5 out of 6 tumor sites with malignant melanoma, 5 out of 6 completely in remission after only 5 sessions. So this is not even talking about, do this for a couple of years, hopefully you get a result. In this case, I'm not saying, I'm not making a claim, I'm looking at clinical studies that show that these mechanisms that we're talking about then become heavily proven. And then somebody will next say then, well, you know what I would have loved to have you have shown me is, I wish you had showed me something that showed me this visibly. Okay, well then, there you go, you get that. This was a cutaneous B-cell lymphoma that was complete remission, and it says after 2 sessions, And I'm not saying all of them go that quickly. These are just, I'm showing you some anomalies, some like outliers. There was 3 people in this pilot trial. All 3 people went into complete remission after 1 week, which is, it's PubMed, 2006 pilot trial. Okay, now let's just go with a bigger group, which also was integrative, which meant that they were using the conventional therapies, published in Lancet Oncology, 413 patients, 49% go into remission in the red light group, 13.5% in the control group. So that's close to 400%. So like there's different, and they didn't do a single other thing outside of that. They didn't change their diet. They didn't, as a variable. And then it was just the standard therapies. What if the standard therapies were actually dropping the rates? Like these are questions that people should ask. There was the lung cancer, and this was 87% response rate. And so we see these great studies, and then when it comes down to it, we talked about wavelengths. Now this is going to make more sense of what I'm saying. There you've got all the wavelengths that are proven in different clinical studies. You see here with stem cell regeneration that 600s, 700s, 800s, 1100 nanometers are proven to drive and generate mesenchymal stem cells in the bones and in the intestines. And then that makes sense why you see all these results with different chronic conditions getting regenerated, and it's because we're using wavelengths that are interfacing with the body. So just want to encourage you guys, if you want to get something that works and you want to get something that you actually be motivated to use, then I would go with something you trust. Go with something that somebody in your community has got a result. And it's a blessing, guys. You don't understand that it's a real blessing that Gary got a result with his wife, because that means that you actually have something that you believe to be true. And if you don't believe it to be true, I would stop watching Gary, because he's a liar. But if it's true, then that means then it means that you should keep watching his stuff, because he's also finding ways to help his family. And that's the kind of people that we need to be following. And that's a great thing, guys. And it's not everyone gets that. If you're just browsing around, you have no idea whether it's helped anyone you love or care about. You have no idea what it actually has in it. You've seen that live. So I just want people to get things that work. If the only way for people to get something is to get like, the most dirt cheap thing that they can find somewhere, then get it and try it. It might work. But I don't know, and I don't know how motivated you will be to use it. But if that's your situation, God will bless you, and that will work for you by God's grace, right? Amen. And then we made things affordable. Like I had a woman, Gary, that had a 9 out of 10 pain score, Dee Dee, right? I've shared this story before. Massage therapist, $48,000 a year, part-time salary, went to a zero by using a product that costs around $300. Right, so
that's the one I have.
Reclaim the salary. Yeah, there you go. And triple lights, 630, 660, and 810, 830, and 1060. So it's like we've got all these different tools, and that's that. The last thing I showed you there with the meters is this one's the EMF meter. Like, do they have EMFs? There's Wi-Fi going on right now. I had turned it off before, but you'll see it in the room, and then there's a signal there for the Wi-Fi. All right, so it's not even next to the device. I put it over the computer, you'll see it jump up. And let's get it over the phone there. You see these numbers go higher when it gets, there we go. Okay, so now I'm gonna get it back here and just wait, because it's a constant signal. There's no like flickering the light. Once you see it hit zero, you know that that's what it actually is when it gets away from the Wi-Fi. There, yeah, see it. I mean, I just need to switch off the Wi-Fi so I'm gonna do a better demonstration. But you get the point.
But I see it is hitting zero.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It'll go there in a second. And I just need to find the place in the room that none of the Wi-Fi is hitting. There you go. Hit zero again. But yeah, so you get the point. And so no EMFs, zero. Literally absolute zero if you're in a dead zone. And so it just means that you don't have to worry about that, Gary. So I hope that was a blessing. Oh, and make sure that you use the code 20, like to get the 25% off. So it's NNN25. For 25% off single items, and NNN30 for 30% off bundled items. So it's super simple. All you got to do is just input that code on checkout, grab something while we've got it, because it's limited time. We're doing a lot of shows. I'll be doing some stuff with Alex Jones, by the way. And
nice.
yeah, and so there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. And so we do sell out because of popularity. So grab stuff while it's available, because we want to serve and support, and we can support you in our community too. And it'd be a blessing for everyone.
Jonathan, thank you so much. So Patriots, something is happening. Tick-borne illness is exploding. Alpha-gal syndrome is spreading. Lyme disease is going systemic, and millions of people are beginning to question whether we're looking at isolated outbreaks or a much deeper systemic failure. The internet's erupting over everything from Plum Island theories to viral Simpsons clips tied to recent hantavirus headlines, but underneath all the speculation, it's a very real issue. People are getting sicker, chronic illness is accelerating, and public trust is collapsing. Jonathan Otto lived through Lyme disease himself, and after years investigating mitochondrial dysfunction, inflammation, parasites, immune collapse, and chronic disease patterns, he believes resilience at the cellular level may become one of the defining health battles of our time. So we thank Jonathan for joining us. And folks, if you have your own story, please comment below. And if you want to support our work here and Jonathan's work, there are links in the description just for you. We'll see you at the next report for the Next News Network. I'm Gary Franchi.